to ask for their status. Winters complains that they don't have an aid station, they run out of food, winter clothes, and ammo. Nixon adds that they have gaps in their perimeter as well. McAuliffe demands that they close the gaps. They are also told that air cover is impossible due to the fog. The men need to toughen it up. Major Winters asks Rowe to get all medical supplies from Dr. Ryan after failing to locate the 3rd Battalion to refill his supplies. Rowe is desperate for morphine and even for a pair of scissors. Their camp is suddenly bombarded, and Alex Pincala is badly wounded on the wrist. Rowe does his best to minimize the bleeding. Rowe goes back to collecting morphine from the other soldiers. He knows it's just a matter of time before one of his comrades needs one. This is his job, and he wants to ensure he is equipped with whatever medicine he can get his hands on. The next day, they are attacked again. Rowe is called in as Wayne Sisk takes a mortal hit to the leg. Sisk refuses to get some morphine and then is taken to safety. Rowe is disappointed to see wounded soldiers being tended to at a makeshift medical facility. He's told that they can't evacuate the survivors as they are cut off from the outside. Rowe befriends Renee, a Belgian nurse who is showing dedication to her job. He can get a few supplies. He then returns to camp but is asked to stay as some soldiers return to the battlefield. Moments later, they return as the enemy's force is too much. One of the soldiers is severely wounded. Rowe comes to the rescue once more. This is what he signed up for. Easy Company soldiers' spirits are lifted the next day as supplies are finally dropped. General McAuliffe sent a message to the team that they were being asked by the Germans to surrender as they were being surrounded. The team laughs it off as they are committed to standing their ground. The next day, the team is surprised by a bombing raid that kills several soldiers. This attack killed Renee as well. Soon, supplies flow again, and the wounded are evacuated. The team holds the line near Foy, Belgium, and in the process, loses several men. Winters and the men are concerned about the team's newly assigned commander, First Lieutenant Norman Dyke. He seems to be absent often without any reason that's acceptable to the team. First Sergeant Carwood Lipton attempts to keep the team's morale up. Joe Toy and William Guarneri lose their legs to shelling. This gives Lieutenant Lynn Buck Compton the shock of his life, and he too is pulled from the line. During the assault on Foy, Dyke fails to effectively lead Easy Company, and Winters orders Spires to relieve him. Victorious, the team takes shelter in a church where Lipton is told he has been given a field commission as a second lieutenant. Spires is officially assigned command of Easy. Fresh from the combat zone, the team is now in Haguenau. They are still in the process of adjusting to life away from the battlefield. The team gives a cold welcome to Private David Webster, who did not escape from the hospital to be a part of the company again like many others. Fresh from West Point, a United States military academy, new replacement Second Lieutenant Henry Jones is now part of the team. Webster and Jones work hand in hand in a night patrol across the river to fetch prisoners for interrogation, which gains them some respect. Winters is promoted to major, Lipton's commission becomes official, and Henry Jones is promoted to the first lieutenant and transferred to the regimental staff. April 11, 1945. Thalheim, Germany. Major Winters informs Captain Lewis Nixon that he's been demoted as the latter scrounges for his favorite whiskey. He'll be transferred to Battalion S3. This seems not to bother Nixon, who is more concerned about what to tell the parents of the soldiers who died in the field. Winters tells him to tell the parents that their children died as heroes. As the Allies move into Germany and the war comes closer to an end, disillusionment and anger set in for Easy Company. Webster cusses at the prisoners, expressing his anger for being halfway around the world to fight in the war. Winters demands to send a patrol to the nearby village and clear the woods. Sergeant Denver Bull Randleman and his team start sweeping the woods when they stumble onto a concentration camp abandoned by the German military. Perconti is sent back to look for Major Winters. Perconti has a hard time explaining what he saw. Winters and his men immediately proceed to the site. What awaits them is something that will haunt them for life. Prisoners by the hundreds are inside a fence with barbed wires. Upon entering the camp, Winters and his men witness the brutality of the war. Nixon moves past the prisoners and finds out that there is more inside. These prisoners are extremely malnourished and can barely walk but are happy to be free. Winters asks Liebget to interpret for him as he wants to know more about their fate. Winters is told that the guards left this morning, but before they did, they burnt the huts with prisoners still inside. The Germans then killed as many prisoners as they could, but they did not have enough bullets. The prisoner also adds that there's a women's camp at the following railroad stop. Winters asks that food and water are immediately sent to the location. The prisoners scramble to stuff themselves. Colonel Robert Sink arrives with a doctor. The doctor asks that they stop giving them food before they eat themselves to death. Winters urges Liebget to explain the danger of eating a lot. Liebget is hesitant at first, knowing how hungry these prisoners are, but Winters insists. Colonel Sink receives a call from General Taylor. Sink explains to Taylor the horrific sight he just saw. Some soldiers also discover that there are still prisoners in the huts. Some are very weak to move. The horrible sight of the prisoners leaves Easy Company horrified and disgusted. The German locals refuse to admit that they know what the camp is for. General Taylor immediately imposed martial law in the area and demanded that they clean up the camp, including removing the bodies with the help of able-bodied Germans. Captain Lewis Nixon informs the team that Hitler has committed suicide in Berlin, but the war is not over. During the following months, Allied forces would discover numerous prisoners of war, concentration, and death camps. July 1945. This episode is narrated by Winters, who shares that it's been 3 years since he and Nixon joined the paratroopers and over a year since they went to war. Winters is about to go on a morning swim when Nixon joins him. He hands over a parcel containing photos of the 506th Parachute Infantry Regiment to which Easy Company belongs. Nixon asks what Winters' plan is now that the war is basically over. Winters admits that he just discussed with Colonel Sink the possibility of him staying. Nixon offers that Winters work with him at a family business back in the US. Winters promises to give it a thought. Winters gives details on how the team manages to capture Berchtesgaden, the Nazi Party's symbolic home where the remaining loyalists of Hitler were hiding, mounted a guerrilla resistance against the Allied forces. That is also the team's gateway to the Eagle's Nest. This Nazi-constructed building served as a surprise birthday present for the German dictator. Easy Company uses hand grenades to clear the roads blocked by the Germans. The team eventually captures the Eagle's Nest in Berchtesgaden with little resistance. They then find a massive collection of liquor at Hermann Göring's house. Göring was a German politician, military leader, and convicted war criminal. He was one of the most influential figures in the Nazi Party. Winters allow the company to celebrate and reward them for a well-done job. Inside the house are 10,000 bottles of the most delicate liquor, wine, and champagne. The day the team discovers the collection is when the war ended in Europe. That indeed calls for a celebration. Winters informs the team that they can take whatever they want, and each company can take a truckload. The team would be leaving for Austria in the morning. The war's end in Europe is announced as the team arrives in Austria. The soldiers are warmly welcomed by the locals. Before they could settle in, Easy Company was prepared by Winters for the possibility of being deployed in Japan. The team is shown footage of the war in Japan to encourage them to sign up when needed. He wants the team to be ready to fight. He then asks the team to start training. Soldiers with enough points do not have to stay and be sent to Japan. Once they reach 85 points, they can be discharged. During a military formation to celebrate the World War II D-Day invasion of Normandy, an officer announces that one man from each company will be sent home via lottery. Sergeant Darrell Powers wins the lottery for Easy Company. The officer then adds that the 101st Airborne Division, which Easy Company is a part of, will be redeployed to the Pacific. They are then told that the training for the war begins tomorrow. Sergeant Darrell Powers emotionally bids goodbye to Winters before heading home. 2 days later, the truck that he was on met an accident that seriously injured the sergeant. Major Winters applies for a transfer to the Pacific Theater. It's the theater of World War II that is currently fought in Asia, the Pacific Ocean, the Indian Ocean, and Oceania. He is asked about his failures and accomplishments when assigned to different locations. The interview brings back bad and good memories as he describes the challenges he had to overcome. When the interview is over, the officer in charge tells him his men have earned the right to keep him around. 3 soldiers go to a mountain to hunt a possible Nazi member. The 2 soldiers are arguing about the decision that they are about to make. They break into his house, take him out, and execute him. 2 soldiers are in a jeep when a truck heading their way loses a cargo and hits their vehicle. Private Janovic died during the accident. He only needed 10 points before he could have been discharged. This, among other insignificant events, upsets Major Winters as the war in Germany is already over, and the enemy has surrendered, but his men are still dying. He does not like the idea that young men like Private Janovic are stuck and unable to go home and see their families just because they did not have enough points to qualify for discharge. Because the soldiers have enough time, weapons, and alcohol, deaths unrelated to war happen. One soldier is even shot in the head after an argument. The suspect is taken into custody and is almost shot at point blank by an angry officer. Winters is told by an officer that Easy Company will need a commanding officer post-war to prevent the men from killing one another. The team needs someone who knows them and who can control them. They are too valuable to be left on their own and, in the process, hurt each other. Over a company baseball game, Winters narrates the fates of some men playing in it. Buck Compton became a prosecutor in Los Angeles. David Webster became a writer and went missing in 1961. Johnny Martin started his own company. George Lewes became a handyman in Providence. Dr. Rowe died in Louisiana in 1998. Frank Perconti returned to Chicago and worked a postal route as a mailman. Joe Liebgott returned to San Francisco and drove his cab. Bull Randleman works in an earth-moving business in Arkansas. Alton Moore was killed in a car accident. Floyd Talbert died in 1981.